I don't know. I mean, I look at today, Donald Trump is inheriting one of the best economies that a president has inherited in a very long period of time. If you look at the fact that something like net migration at the border is lower than it was even before Donald Trump took office. If you want to look at the stock market, you're looking at the stock market rising.
I'm
not even finished running it down yet.
This is the first time. The border needs to be secured further, and this number can be accurate.
This is the first time in dozens of years that a president has actually inherited a government where we don't have soldiers overseas in active combat zones. So, I mean, let's actually look at where we are. He is actually inheriting a government right now that is much better than any predecessor he's had before.
Hey, welcome back to the channel. It's your man Wise, and let's keep it a buck. CNN basically exists at this point to make Scott Jennings look like a daggone rock star. They can't figure out why their ratings are sinking below the daggone Food Network. And maybe, just maybe, it's because they keep trotting out folks like Bakari Sellout to spin narratives and frankly, just make stuff up. The American people are not stupid. They're tired of the lies, they're tired of the spin, and they're definitely tired of the gaslighting by the Democratic shills like Bakari Sellers and so many others. In the last election, over 77 million Americans, nearly 49.9% of the popular vote, stood behind President Donald J. Trump, sending a loud and clear message. But instead of listening, folks like Bakari Sellout, yes, I said it again, and other professional Democratic shills keep doubling down, pretending nothing's wrong. Meanwhile, everyday people are feeling the squeeze of rising costs, weak leadership, and a media that's more interested in pushing an agenda than telling the actual truth. We're going to get into this video. These people, it's 2-on-1, Scott Jennings against Bakari Sellout and another Democrat shield, but we got to talk about it and we got to get into it. Like, share, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications on so you never miss an upload. Let's get into it.
And joining me right now, CNN political commentator Scott Jennings and Bakari Sellers to talk all about this. Bakari, as our colleague Stephen Collinson wrote it, January 6, 2025 will mark the most stunning political comeback in U.S. history. Congress will convene to certify Trump's 2024 election win, clearing his way to be America's 47th president. Today marks showing American democracy works, or the nation has short memories?
Short memories. I think that Democrats should go out and Joe Biden should rally on the Mall. I think then we should go in and make sure that we sit on Mike Johnson's desk. We should take the Confederate flag and parade through the Capitol. I think we should injure 140 officers. And then if Kamala Harris dares to certify the vote, we should threaten to hang her. I mean, do you see how, I think people should understand how ludicrous that sounds, but that's where we were 4 years ago. That is what this incoming president helped usher in. But what we've realized is it's not just short memories. It's the same thing we've seen around the world with Justin Trudeau later this week and others. But it's the same thing we've seen around the world. These economic pressures, prices rising, cultural anxiety lead to these electoral outcomes.
Scott, in a political sense, is it?
I want to say this. The situation, the incident from, January 6th, it's an ugly mark on the United States. It is. It didn't look good, but it's nowhere near as bad as they was making it out. And it started off as people out there peacefully protesting. Now, I've had a lot of people shoot me messages about what was going on there. I know a couple of people that were there. There was a lot of Bibles. There was a lot of praying. There was a lot of song singing. And then it got ratcheted up. Now, I'm not saying that the FBI was involved or not in, ratcheting up the crowd. But what we do know is that there were a lot of, quote unquote, confidential informants that were a part of the crowd that we do know. We also know that Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi decided that they don't need extra security there. We're not going to bring in the National Guard to help for security, even though President Donald Trump at the time offered the services. They don't want to talk about that. They just want to talk about the people there that were frustrated with the outcome. And the last time I checked, the First Amendment gives people the ability to voice their frustration in a peaceful way. And for the most part, it was that until it wasn't.
how we got here is interesting, and you can see the evolution. You can play all the sound bites from the days after when you heard Republicans blaming Donald Trump, some being short of saying he should be impeached, saying he should be held accountable. And 4 years later, we are here. It is a stunning political comeback attributed to how Trump played it afterward, how Democrats played it afterward, or something else?
Well, I think it's some mixture of everything. But to me, the big message is that in the United States, the people decide. And because of the disastrous 4 years that came after Donald Trump, the people decided to return Donald Trump to power. And that's fundamentally what happened. They looked at what happened on January the 6th. They looked at all the things Democrats claimed about Donald Trump. And they also analyzed every single decision that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris made. And they delivered Donald Trump a convincing victory 4 years later.
It is tough, though, Scott, because when you say the people decide, that's what people tried to make sure didn't happen on January 6th, was allowing the people to decide.
The machinery turned. It was a terrible...
The lack of acknowledgement of how bad it was in the aftermath.
I mean, I think a great many people have acknowledged it, but also what happened that day. The machinery turned. Joe Biden became the president. He had one of the worst terms of any U.S. president, and then the people scrambled back to Donald Trump. That is the history of what happened.
Scott Jennings is being super nice, saying one of the worst terms. It's probably the worst term, and at least in modern U.S. history, and at least in my lifetime. It's awful. It's been terrible these past 4 years.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I look at today, Donald Trump is inheriting one of the best economies that a president has inherited in a very long period of time. If you look at the fact that something like net migration at the border is lower than it was even before Donald Trump took office. If you want to look at...
This dude said net migration. Now listen to me now. He said that Donald Trump is inheriting the best economy in U.S. history that a president has ever inherited. That's why you can't take these people serious, man. That's why. And you see the look on Scott Jennings' face. That's why you can't take these people serious, because all they do is lie. Now hear me. In fiscal year 2020, there were approximately 458,000 encounters at the border. That was at the southwest border. In fiscal year, the following year, when Biden takes office, fiscal year 2021, there were approximately 1.7 million encounters at the border. That's year one. We're talking a $1.2 million difference. I'm sorry, 1.2 million person difference, give or take a couple thousand. This dude's ridiculous, man. That's why you can't take these people seriously.
Something like net migration at the border is lower than it was even before Donald Trump took office. If you want to look at the stock market, you're looking at the stock market right now.
I'm not even finished running it down yet.
This is the first time. This is the first time.
The border needs to be secured further, and this number can be accurate.
But this is the first time. This is the first time in dozens of years that a president has actually inherited a government where we don't have soldiers overseas in active combat zones. So, I mean, let's actually look at where we are.
Another lie. There are soldiers overseas in active combat zones in harm's way. Goodness gracious, man. This is ridiculous.
We actually, or he is actually inheriting a government right now that is much better than any predecessor he's had before.
Okay. I mean, I recognize that was the argument that was made during the election. And I would also like to recognize that the American people soundly rejected that argument. We do have American troops in forward locations all over the world.
Not in combat zones.
But they are in hot spots. I mean,
but not in combat zones.
We just had an American soldier die not too long ago in the Middle East.
Correct. And they're protecting our freedom every day.
Trying to fix Joe Biden's $300 million.
For someone that never served in the military, I don't think Bakari Sellout has served in the military, but tell it to those guys that have bullets whizzing over their heads that they're not in combat zones. This dude's ridiculous, man.
Public relations peer for Gaza. I mean, the reality is migration was a disaster. Immigration was a disaster for 3.5 years, and they tried to window dress it for the last 6 months. Inflation was a disaster for all 4 years. The economy is not working for most people. That's why Democrats lost the election, and that's why they're going back to Trump.
Democrats lost the election. Nobody's arguing that. I mean, that's what the argument was 4 years ago when Donald Trump was filing lawsuits and they were raiding the White House. What we are saying, though, is that prices are going down. What I am saying is murder
They're not
rates.
going down.
They actually are going down. Murder
inflation
rates.
inflation is still
It's
going
plateauing.
up.
It is decreasing in rate, which is the entire goal
But
of
are
the
prices
Federal
going
Reserve.
down or not? Just to be clear. No, they're not
They
going
are
down.
down
And they're
from their sky high rates.
Yeah, actually,
No.
Let's move on. Next up for
We were just arguing over combat zones. I don't know where we are this morning.
you can argue.
You guys are trying to paint a picture of a country that doesn't exist. I
I'm
don't
not
understand.
painting anything. I'm painting. Stop talking.
was a
That's what I'm painting. Next up, Sarah, help me. Next up, the Republican majority in Congress is now getting to work. They've got.
I don't see how Scott Jennings do it, man. I hope he's getting a hefty paycheck over there to combat the simpletons over there on that network. Every time he sits down to debate or sits down to have a conversation about anything, it's normally a 2 or a 3-on-1. That right there in itself lets you know that these people, they can't stand on business that by themselves. They can't. Bakari Sellers said there's no troops in combat zones right now. None. Not to mention, you gloss over the fact that when you pulled out of Afghanistan, how much of a failure that was. We left millions upon millions of dollars of equipment. We lost soldiers there that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden still have failed to acknowledge. I mean, this is sickening, man. It really is. And the people that watch CNN, I'm glad that their numbers are down. I really am. I'm glad that people are deciding to turn that network off because they're ridiculous, man. Oh, this was sickening. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I'm sorry. This was hard to watch. This was hard to watch, especially when you know what's actually happening and what's going on. To sit there and watch this dude lie and say that President Trump is inheriting a great economy, the stock market's doing okay. But the job market is in shambles right now. We've had 3 years of layoffs. 3 years of layoffs. People are either still unemployed, taking jobs that pay a fraction of what they previously were making, or they're working 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet. Inflation is up, but the pay at jobs have not caught up with it. So although people are technically making more money, it doesn't feel like it. It actually feels like they're making less money. These people are ridiculous, man. They're ridiculous. And Hakeem Jeffries himself on Friday, we discussed it yesterday, on Friday, he came out of his own mouth and said that we got to get this border's out of control and we got to get that fixed. We got to get inflation down. We got to get the economy and jobs back online. He himself. So there's a disconnect even between their own party. These people are ridiculous, man. It's so frustrating. It really is. It's so frustrating, man. Let me know what you guys think about this. Like, share, subscribe, drop me a comment. I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys, man. Stay warm, stay bundled up. It is cold. Goodness gracious, it's cold out there, man. Hey, stay prayed up. It is crazy. I'm going to catch up with you all next time. Peace.
Vibes so raw.